Welcome back. In our previous sessions, we covered strategic frameworks and metrics that I'm sure that you remember that. Now let us get into the specifics. When you sit across from a hiring manager in an interview room for any kind of international trade roles, they aren't just looking for knowledge. They are looking for a specific mindset. That's what we are trying to understand in this particular lecture. Today, we will, in this lecture, look into what interviewers are specifically expecting when hiring for two critical roles. So, for simplicity, we will focus on these two critical roles, or we can say paths. The first is the international marketing executive, and the second is the business development manager. So, we'll focus on these two paths and we'll try to understand specifically what kind of mindset the hiring managers are looking for. That we will do in this lecture. So, if we talk about the international marketing executive, what hiring managers are looking at when they look at somebody for this role, they think of the person, the future market orchestrator, basically. So, what is this market orchestrator? Let's try to understand. If you are interviewing for this role, that is the international marketing executive, the interviewer basically wants to know if you can balance the global image of the company with local relevance. So, what actually you need to emphasize? There are three things actually what you need to emphasize. The first is the brand consistency. What is this brand consistency? That you have to think it like this, that can you ensure that the brand looks and feels the same in different countries? So, what it looks like maybe in Tokyo, does it look like and feel like same in Paris also? So, basically, what they are trying to understand, that whether you can protect the brand equity across borders. So, there is no hard and fast. I'm not saying that there is hard and fast that it has to be exactly same. There can be some variation, but basically, the global image of the company is the asset of the company. So they want that it should have that kind of continuity in different countries. For example, if you look at US brands like McDonald or Pizza Hut, so if you go to different countries, you will expect something from this brand which is typical of it internationally. So, this is about the brand consistency. This is the first emphasis you have to give. The second thing which you need to emphasize is your ability to formulate localization strategy. Now, this is localization strategy means it is not just translation of things in local language. It is the basically local adaptation. So, are you ready to discuss, for example, how you adapt messaging to fit local cultural nuances without really losing the brand's soul? So that has to remain. So that is basically how do you formulate the localization strategy? Are you capable of doing that? That is the second thing that you need to emphasize. The third thing, you need to emphasize your abilities with respect to agency management. What is this agency management? In international roles, you often manage third party agencies. That can be the public relations agencies or creative work agencies in different countries, in different time zones. So basically, the interviewer will look at your ability, will try to gauge your ability to be able, whether you are able to set the key performance indicators, KPIs, for these agencies, these partners in different countries, and whether you can hold them accountable for those KPIs performance that is expected out of them, because you are paying them, whether you are able to get the results on those KPIs. So that ability of agency management. So these are the three things: brand consistency, localization strategy, and agency management, right? So this is basically the image of a international marketing executive which is going on in the mind of the interviewer, who think of them as the market orchestrator with these kind of capabilities and emphasis on brand consistency and localization strategy and the agency management capabilities. That is what happens. So if we talk of the other role, other path that we are focusing on in this particular lecture, that is the role of the business development manager. So the interviewers generally and typically, they think of the future business development manager in the company as basically the relationship architects. So the builder of relationship, the hunters of relationships across the borders, and the maintainer of those relationships. So the business development manager role is basically different from our international marketing executive, who's an orchestrator, and this is the relationship architect basically. So here the interviewers are looking for business development managers as hunters who can build long-term relationships and the architecture in different countries of those relationships. And if you want to be successful in such kind of interviews, looking at what they are looking for or what they expect from you for such roles, you should focus on things like pipeline management. So, what is this pipeline management? They want to hear about your pipeline management means sales funnel. What is the sales funnel? That how do you identify leads in different countries, different foreign countries? How do you hunt for such leads? And what kind of sales funnel you can use, whether it is practical, whether it is useful, whether it is result oriented. So, how do you move a prospect from, for example, interested to the deal, that is the contract signed? How do you convert that conversion? So that sales funnel which actually converts leads. So not only you hunt for the leads, you also convert them into the real relationships. That's why you are a relationship architect. And second thing you need to emphasize and focus on is the negotiation skills across the borders. So international negotiation, I'm talking about international deals that involve complex terms, international commercial terms to be negotiated, negotiation on payment cycles, on legal matters, and the liabilities, legal liabilities of the buyer and the seller. So you must demonstrate that you can stand on your ground while finding a win win solution in such international trade negotiations, business negotiations. So, whether you carry those negotiation skills as the business development manager, very, very important. And third, very important thing is with regard to the cross cultural management. So, basically, this is your secret sauce. Third thing, that is the third thing that I'm talking about. Can you read the unspoken rules between the lines of business meetings or business dealings in, for example, Middle East versus North America? What are the differences? What, if you're talking of the US market, you're talking of EU market, you're talking of UK market, you're talking of the Gulf markets, GCC markets. So, what are those differences? in the kind of communication which is required because of the unspoken rules which are there. So, interviewer will listen for your cultural intelligence from your answers, or you can say cultural quotient CQ, to see whether you are literate with regard to cross cultural communication, whether you have those skills. So, these are the three very important relationship skills, relationship architect you are being treated in these kind of roles. So, things like pipeline management, which I discussed about, and the negotiation skills and the cross cultural communication. There are many others. I'm just giving some examples of the top skills that you should carry. So, in all this, there are few things which are common that are expected in such interviews for all kinds of roles, including these two roles. So, basically, it is possible that the task will be quite different actually as a international marketing executive or business development manager. The task may be different. The expectations in some areas may overlap. So, I'll talk about three very important areas where these expectations are likely to overlap. The first is the strategic thinking. In both roles, strategic thinking is required. So, can you see the near term future or the medium term future, maybe 5 year plan, maybe 3 year plan? So, can you strategize your current actions to those plans? And the second important area that overlaps in such roles, in the expectations, what they expect, is the resilience of the candidate, which is the actually requirement for all kind of international roles. That how do you handle a market entry failures? So that kind of emotional quotient or resilience that is required for such roles. So, irrespective of what role you are being interviewed, they expect this thing. So, this overlaps. And third very important thing is the your decision making based on data. So, data driven decision making skills. Can you justify your actions with the metrics that we discussed in the last lecture, metrics and frameworks, and that require basically data analysis. So, data driven decisions based on those metrics and frameworks that we discussed. So, if you can demonstrate these overlaps, these overlapping skills, which are many, but I just talked about the top one: strategic thinking, resilience, and data driven decisions. If you can demonstrate these skills, you aren't just a candidate in the interview, you are likely to be selected for the role and you will become the future leader if you can do it. So, basically, understanding these expectations allows you to mirror the needs of the company during your interviews. In our next and final lecture of this particular module on strategy and global marketing and digital marketing, we'll wrap up with the summary of the global strategy mastery and how to maintain this momentum in your ongoing career. See you there.